And welcome on back, everyone, to episode 74 of Streaming with the Mouse. And this is actually going to be the first time we're recording it live for YouTube. So you actually get to see our faces. So it takes away from the podcast, but get ready. We are going to be talking about the first episode of The Bad Batch, episode 1, Aftermath. So stay tuned, and you're either listening or watching Streaming with the Mouse. And welcome on back, everyone, to episode 74 of Streaming with Mouse. My name is Cliff Robinson, and joining me as always is, I don't know, which one do you want to be?
Which Bad Batch character I want to
Yeah.
be? I like to be Wrecker, but I'm definitely too nice to be Wrecker. Not that Wrecker isn't a nice guy, but he's a little destructive. I'm probably more of like a tech, because I can be kind of a jerk sometimes, and when I'm a little smarter than people. But yeah, I'll probably go with them.
And glasses.
And glasses. There we go.
And glasses. So.
Well, you have the glasses too, but I'm over it.
I do, but I can take them off.
I cannot.
You can't.
I would be blind without them.
They're my reading glasses, because after ages of Marvel content, I am back to do Star Wars. So then the tech to my, I don't know, who do I do like.
You love Hunter.
I do like Hunter. So because I was having this conversation. I don't know. I don't see Echo as a full Bad Batch member yet.
It's interesting because we only got him as a Bad Batch member before this episode, obviously, for what, like 5 seconds at the end of that arc in season 7.
Exactly.
And then I was like, okay, Echo's part of the Bad Batch all of a sudden. Yeah.
So there we go. The tech to my Hunter.
There we go.
That came out on May the 4th. We are recording this on Revenge of the 5th, and you will all be watching this on Return of the 6th. So that actually kind of plays out well. Because we're on. I think you have one too. If you're listening, the lightsabers are out. Oh, you have the sound. Mine doesn't. Mine's just a click.
This is like the nice $30 one you can get at Disney Springs or where. Well, I don't know if you can get it anymore, but you used to be able to. But it's Luke's. Shout out, Luke. Episode 6.
Perfect.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good one, and I like that it stays green without it being lit.
Exactly, and then we have those really cool ones that they announced for 2022.
The actual ones.
Yeah, those are
those definitely you won't be able to, I doubt you'll be able to purchase them, but they look pretty cool.
No, I think that was the thing. They patented it, so it could be sold.
I think it's going to be for like an activity you can do on the Star Cruiser, but if they sell them, it's going to be like thousands of dollars probably for those things. I'll stick with my $220 one.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. So we have some news, not a ton, but you can take it away for the first one, because I think you were much more excited about this than I am. I'm still excited, but it's hard to beat you on this.
I definitely am. So obviously I love Star Wars. Don't get me wrong. Star Wars, Marvel, it's basically tied, but I love Marvel sometimes a little bit more. But Loki has been officially moved up. Instead of coming out on June 11th, they'll be coming out on Wednesday, June 9th. And we have also learned that every Wednesday is when the new Loki episodes will be coming out. So it looks like Disney Plus is starting to back away from their Friday release dates, and they're looking to do other release dates for different shows, which I think is interesting. And I think it's something we've kind of talked about in the past. I don't know about if on the podcast, but definitely conversationally, like how the heck is this all going to work when all these like big time shows just get released on a Friday? Like, it's hard to hype them up. How is that going to look for numbers? But now that you're starting to diversify your release dates, you can hype up those Loki release dates on Friday on Wednesday, and still have Bad Batch being released on Fridays. And then when you eventually get different shows too, you can have some being released maybe on Tuesday. It really creates a cool situation where you could be set up to like Disney Plus is a must watch every single day for the most part, which is very exciting. But I'm obviously excited. Loki 2 days earlier, we got a little tiny little snippet the other day. So I'm excited for it. It looks very interesting. It's kind of in the WandaVision realm where I don't really know what's happening and I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we kind of have some ideas. But I'm super excited for it.
And they are supposedly looking at multiple seasons. Supposedly, we shall see.
I think is really good, and I feel like you could do it since this is an alternate version or universe of Loki, which is exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of alternate universes, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter have both been moved to non-MCU Marvel content on Disney Plus. RIP to
Is that official
two of the
on Disney
OGs
Plus?
on Disney Plus. It is officially official where
Wow.
they have been moved. Very sad. I know they were saying that like some of Agents of Shield was canon. They hadn't really talked about Agent Carter, which is a little weird, but
Yeah,
now
that'll
we
be
know.
interesting.
Now we know. It's kind of just a nice little shot as I take my glasses off. And then the last thing, not a huge thing, they released a picture of Hawkeye in his purple uniform. I thought it
So
looked pretty
I still
cool.
haven't seen this. I've been looking for this
Oh,
all over Twitter, and I haven't been able to see it. But what I have seen is the first look of Kamala Khan in the
how did I
Miss
forget
Marvel
that?
uniform, and that looks great. The fact that we're getting all these comic book accurate costumes in Phase 4 so far between Scarlet Witch, Sam as Captain America. If Hawkeye has a purple uniform, I'm assuming it looks pretty comic book accurate. Now Miss Marvel, I'm pretty excited, and I think it's been more of a trend that Disney or Marvel Studios, excuse me, and Disney, I guess, for lack of better words, too, have been going in the direction of the comic book accurate costumes. I mean, Captain Marvel had a great costume. Very recently, Black Panther 2, and even though these are very like cartoony, comic booky kind of costumes, they're making appearances in the MCU. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, or last week actually. We talked about Falcon Winter Soldier. Like they don't look weird; they look like they belong in the universe, and that's really hard to do. I think with these comic book gimmicky kind of costumes, but very exciting to see them going on that. So I'm excited to see what else they do for comic book accurate costumes because I'm all here for it. I love that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It was very good. And now the thing is, get ready for a nice yellow X-Men for
I'm
Wolverine. It's
hoping.
going to be
I need a comic book accurate costume for Wolverine. Maybe you don't have to do like the helmet thingy, but like everything else, I want the comic book accurate costume of Wolverine if this is what you're doing with this.
yeah, absolutely 100%. That is it for news. Other than we found out names of Phase 4 stuff, like
Ooh,
how.
timeout. I just
Ooh,
saw it. It looks good.
yeah, it
I just,
does.
yeah, I just, I finally
And I
got it. It
believe
looks
he is
really, really good.
posing with a picture with the Echo, which is
Oh,
also
okay.
supposedly
Interesting.
comic book accurate
Interesting.
for a look. Other than that, we know that Miss Marvel 2 is going to be called The Marvels.
Yes, we do.
That is not going to be Disney Plus though.
We'll probably talk about it though if it
We
involves
probably
our one of our
we
Disney Plus
probably
characters.
will. But it is time to jump in unless you have anything that I missed.
No, I think that was the big one. The only other thing is supposedly Bad Batch is going to be 16 episodes
Oh,
long.
it is going to be. That was
So I
confirmed,
don't
I
know how
thought.
they're going to release that. If it is going to be one a week, I feel like we'll see you this Friday. I guess I feel like Disney could be like, yeah, you know what, we're going to do 2 or 3 a week because maybe do mini arcs or something like that. But 16 weeks in a row of Bad Batch, it seems like a lot, but I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. I'm not complaining at what all whatsoever. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. 74 minutes as we jump into episode 1, Aftermath. 74 minutes. I could do a 74-minute episode for 16 weeks. Just give me
I'm
it
for
all.
it. It's good.
What were your first reactions to this overall episode?
Yeah. Yeah, so I know I'm going to sound like a broken record on this because I think I say this for literally almost every animation series, but like, my goodness, the animation looks great. I really enjoy that we're integrating, and they did this for Clone Wars season 7, where they're integrating aspects of the films and movies into it. So like we have Palpatine's speech. I loved how it began, even if it retconned something that was in the comics. But we'll talk about that, I guess, when we talk about the beginning of this episode. Um, there was one thing I really didn't like, and I think you had the same opinion of me. It's nothing story wise. We'll talk about it when we talk about the beginning
Oh.
scene, but something really threw me off. That I was like, I can't,
Oh.
I can't be in the moment right now because
Oh
it's throwing me
yes.
off. But I thought it was really good. Obviously, it seemed like this was like one of those things where they took like 2 or 3 episodes and smushed them together into one, which is very much like George Lucas kind of likes to do that, especially when you think about the first Clone Wars movie. Was seemed like it was a couple episodes all pushed together, but I was happy with it. I was really excited, and I fell in love with the Bad Batch. I mean, in season 7, like I feel like I didn't give them their due diligence with it because I was like, okay, give me the Ahsoka stuff because I want the Ahsoka stuff now, and I wanted the duel with Maul on I almost said on Mustafar, but on Mandalore. So I was excited for it. These characters are really interesting, and I'm excited to see where the stories go from here. What about your first thoughts on
Good.
it?
You were so sold on the Bad Batch. You
But like
were
I was also
you were
like,
ready.
no, I
You were
was,
like,
but I was also like, give me Ahsoka. But now I know I'm probably not getting Ahsoka. Like this is what we're focusing on. I'm excited for it. Also, I think Omega is a great character. I know we'll talk about her later too. But what are your first thoughts on it?
okay, well, we'll get Ahsoka in live action. We know this.
Yes,
Professor Bond or Facebook messaged me and was like, "What were your like knee jerk reactions for this?" And I'm like, honestly, I'm like, I was not sold on the Bad Batch in season 7 of the Clone Wars, and then I watched this first episode and I'm like, oh my god, I am so sold on this now. Like this was what I needed. This was my buy-in. Your buy-in was season 7. While you did want other things, you were very much like, I'm ready. This is great. I
it's
want
just the
more.
idea of like the super enhanced clones. Like I love clones to begin with, and the fact that we have like these super enhanced ones that kind of reminds me of like a little mini Avengers team where everybody has their own different powers and whatnot. I was excited for it for sure.
Yes. But no, I was so sold on this. I was like, oh my god, this episode alone, because it uses very much the Clone Wars animation. It was excellent. Um, if we count this as part of the Clone Wars, which it kind of is, it's a continuation, especially as we know it went from the Clone Wars logo,
That was
melted
interesting.
away into the Bad Batchers. I thought was really cool. So
I thought it was cool.
unlike Rebels, which is a brand new show, this seems more of a continuation, following a new storyline. And this whole like aftermath arc, because that's what we can call it. We can call this whole arc aftermath. This could potentially be up there with like Siege of Mandalore with how good it was personally.
That's a
Um,
take. I like that take. I don't agree with it, but I like the take a lot. Definitely like I
um,
appreciate you have that take.
I said up there. I didn't say is,
For sure. No, I heard you. I heard you. I heard you.
and that's just what I want to rewatch it. I might rewatch it tonight. Um, but let's jump into it. As
Yeah.
the description of this episode was, the clones of the Bad Batch find themselves in a changing galaxy after the Clone Wars. With the opening crawler, and I was really happy to have him back. I know Tom Kane, who was the voice of Admiral Yularen and Master Yoda, suffered a stroke, and that left him unable to speak well and all these things. So I was really happy to hear his voice for sure. And we heard back in his excellent voice, the separatists pushed to the brink. Republic forces continue to mount victories on battlefronts across the galaxy. After the Jedi Knights thwarted an attempt to kidnap Chancellor Palpatine, the evil droid General Grievous retreated to the Outer Rim. With his legions of battle droids severely depleted, Grievous mounts a desperate and brutal counterattack across several star systems. We find Republic clone troopers locked in deadly combat on the besieged world of Kaller. Led by Jedi Master Deepa Balaba, they struggle to hold their position as they wait for reinforcements to arrive. Before we even talk about the first scene, we got two things that we both wanted. We got a new helmet opening. We got
Yes.
more helmets
That was
added.
very
I
exciting.
was very excited. I'm like, okay, it was a little long, but I was still excited. And two, we saw a lot of Revenge of the Sith scenes in
In
the
animation.
opening, which was so cool.
Very exciting.
And my first comment on this is Doom, not
Yeah.
Doom, Domm, Dume. As on the planet Kaller, we are shown clone Captain Gray and his Jedi Master Deepa Balaba as they are in this very big assault, as the droids are very much pushing forward and they are waiting for reinforcements from their Padawan. Uh, and I don't know, have we ever seen this Padawan before? I don't think. I think we might know him by a different name.
Definitely heard the voice before, I can tell you that much.
Yes, and as we are waiting for these reinforcements, a young Caleb Doom with the voice of a 45-year-old man comes streaming out of the woodline, and is everyone's favorite, Kanan Jarrus, and he is as smug and very Ezra-ish, in my personal opinion.
I I agree with that. I did get a lot of like Ezra vibes from him, which makes I think Rebels even more special. The fact that Caleb, Caden, whatever you want to call him, was like that too. And like, okay, now he trained Ezra and Rebels. I when they said Depa's name, I was like, oh my god, where are we going with this? Because I
Hmm.
had read the spin-off comic, I guess, or that is technically was I don't know what it is now, but it was canon because it was after Disney purchased the rights, and it kind of goes with like Kanan's thoughts about and his like memories about this whole encounter when Order 66 happened and he lost his master. And they kind of retconned that, and I was like upset with that beginning because I'm like, we shouldn't be doing that. That's like a Disney one. Like I get if it was a Legends thing, but it's not. But at the same time, I was like, oh my god, we have like Clone War or excuse me, Rebels characters on the screen again, which I was excited. The big thing that threw me off was Caleb Cannon's voice because it was Freddie Prinze Jr.'s voice, and he sounded exactly like Kanan had in Rebels. But Caleb is supposed to be a 14-year-old boy or 15, whatever. Is it 14 or 15? It doesn't really matter. He's supposed to be much younger than he was in Rebels, and that really threw me off because I couldn't get past that in the moment. I think it's awesome you bring Freddie Prinze Jr. in, but maybe hire a younger actor so it's more believable.
In his defense, my voice has been this deep since 8th grade. So
Okay.
I kind of get it, but he sounded very like the lines were very old Kanan.
Yeah, it needed to be more Ezra, the way he acted, I guess. But also, like, I probably could have gone with like a younger voice, or like even if Freddie Prinze Jr. did it, but like change your voice up a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense. It just really threw me off because I couldn't really get into the moment because I'm like, okay, that's young Kanan with old Kanan's voice. Like that, it was
It
weird.
was funny to me. I could look past it, but Kanan arrives, Caleb arrives, and Commander or Captain Gray. He's not a commander. Captain Gray's like, "Where are the reinforcements?" And Kanan is like, "They sent 5. We get 5 troopers," and they're like, "We can't win like that." He's like, "Oh, just wait till you see these clones." And then this boulder. This is what's the? We should know the name of this maneuver. The boulder maneuver that they
Yeah,
used in Clone Wars comes streaming down the mountain, and these guys just go to town.
yeah,
Like they just completely decimate not a battalion, but a large amount of droids, clearing the way for the clones to now go on the offensive. And
yeah.
this was just an insane action-packed sequence that really showcased all of their skills.
I like that you
And
say that, Cliff, because it's a beautiful way to say that because this could be an introduction to somebody for the Bad Batch, and they introduced all their skills really well. So if you hadn't watched Clone Wars,
mhm,
you could still get into it. You might not get what the heck Echo is and like why he's in this whole thing because you didn't see in Clone Wars, but like you could easily start watching this and understand for almost the most part, like, oh, this is what's happening. They're enhanced clones. They all have these special powers, and they mess shit up. Oh, I can't swear, but they mess things up. Excuse me.
yes, and they just completely do it. And Captain Gray's like, "Oh my God, that's Clone Force 99." And this is something I want to emphasize before we even jump into Order 66. Before before we see Order 66 take place in 3 seconds, these clones are like, "Oh my God, these clones are so cool." There's a respect for the the Bad Batch before we start Order 66, and that quickly plummets.
For sure,
And we'll talk
especially
about it.
after that
And there was a
happens.
really interesting thing about villainizing clones after Order 66 and wiping away their identities. And we'll talk about this more. But just like Bill Murray does, it's Groundhog's Day again. It's Order 66 again as Kanan goes off with the Bad Batch to lead a partial assault, as his master goes with the clones. An order is called in, and instantly, Depa feels this. She starts to fight the clones. She takes a lot of shots.
And she goes hard at them. She was completely surrounded. It was really impressive to see her fight.
It was, and the Bad Batch is like, "What the heck is happening?" Um, and Kanan sees his master die, automatically assumes the clones, and his Order 66 is partially retconned. And I said this because Dave Filoni, they're his characters.
For sure.
Ahsoka was his character, also George's, but Ahsoka and Kanan are like his characters if we're going to talk about this. And he kind of gets a right to do this, in my personal opinion. The Ahsoka novel got retconned slightly, and now Kanan's novel got retconned slightly. And I think it's fine personally because we, as Kanan runs away from specifically Crosshair and Hunter, this is only the beginning of Order 66. He does see his master die, and all these things happen, but then finally he's able to escape. And then
Sure.
his stuff can happen after that. I know it happens a lot faster, but
Yeah.
it's this weird connect.
Here's what I'll say. I do get that it's Dave's character, like it's Dave's story to tell for the most part too. But I think what's frustrating is like I don't want this to become like a constant thing because like I don't know about you, but like I invest a lot of money in the comics and in the novels and stuff like that. So, and I purposely buy the stuff that is canon because I want to
Mm.
read the canon things to be fully immersed. I know I've read a couple Legends things here and there, but like I don't bother reading them anymore because there's so many other books and comics that I haven't read that are canon that I want to read. So I invest a lot of money into the canon stuff. So I don't like to like feel invested in time, money, energy in those things, and then them just get retconned in a TV show or a movie or a cartoon, whatever it may be. Like I don't. That's where I like. I'm like, oh, like I kind of wish it didn't happen like that. Not that I bought the Rebels comic, but I've read it. Like I read it on Marvel Unlimited, which is something I pay for every month, and I was like, oh, like that stinks because I invested in that story. I had this head canon in my head. And then they go ahead and retcon it. So I just don't want it to be a constant thing. This isn't a big deal, but I don't want it to be made into a big deal for other things, I guess is the best way of saying it.
Yes, and the only way I'll like change this a little bit where both are canon. Back when they used to do canon versions, canon theatrical books, especially with Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah.
both were technically canon. Where
Yeah.
like it went a lot deeper into the battle between Sidious and Mace Windu and all of them. But they're technically were at the time were both canon. And then with the Ahsoka one, it mostly misses some snippy dialogue back and forth, as well as Ahsoka has green lightsabers instead of blue lightsabers. There's all these like small things where with Kanan, he still sees his master die. Technically, when he runs through the woods after Crosshair is ready to snipe him, and we'll talk about that also, he could technically still meet up with those clones and that same thing still happens. It just adds a point between X and Z. We have that
Yeah.
point
Like
Y now. I know it happens a lot faster in the comics, but we can also look at it as like books are spread out. Books offer a lot more detail than a movie, and a comic
sure.
offers less detail than a than a show. And we can look at it in the fact that these characters, these Jedi, are technically looking on the past are unrealistic or what's the word? Bad
Unreliable
storytellers,
narrators.
unreliable narrative. Because in Kanan, this is the most
Narrators, sorry.
traumatic thing in his life. He's not going to remember that the Bad Batch was there and being kind of nice to him.
It's a
He's
great
not
point
going to
though.
remember that.
That's
And
a good point.
that's a way you can look at it as a headcanon where these people have been so traumatized by this one thing and they can feel the Force get like ripped out of them. That they're not going to remember every detail. They're only going to remember the most pinnacle parts.
Yeah.
And
That's a
that's
good
just the
point.
way you can look at it, where
Yeah.
Ahsoka's not going to really remember green versus blue lightsaber
Sure.
when she's
That's a good
looking
point.
back on like the lowest part of her life.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll get over it. And I am over it. I don't want it to be a constant thing
I
from
think
this
it's
point
only
on,
going
I
to be a
guess what I would
constant
say.
thing with Dave, and I am personally okay with that because
Fine, sure.
he deserves the full storytelling of his characters. That's
Sure.
just
I'm
my
not
own.
wearing a Dave Filoni shirt, but I'm wearing a Kevin Feige shirt, and Dave Filoni's on the same
There we go.
wavelength as Kevin Feige. So sure, yeah, I'll give you that.
So I said rip to a real one, Depa, as she goes to town.
He went
Um,
really hard in the paint, and I appreciated the heck out of
only
it,
on a defensive though. She did
which
not
was
strike.
awesome
She was
too.
only redirecting. But then the Bad Batch is so confused for the most part because their chips don't seem to work, except for Crosshair, where he still keeps his personality, but he knows to finish the mission. Except, what's the weird thing about the Bad Batch? They don't follow the narrative, they don't follow the order correctly. So,
Yeah, and what I like about this is like the key word is partially because Crosshair like has this like the chip is affecting him, the
mhm,
inebriated chip, but it's not at the same time where he's like still kind of able to like okay, I'm still gonna do what my brothers in not in the Clone Force 99 are doing, but like in the back of his head, he also has this like thing telling him to do this. When he said "good soldiers follow orders," I like had goosebumps. I was like,
oh no.
oh no, what are we doing? No, 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 don't give me those lines, Dave. I don't need that right now. I don't need that sadness.
There were a lot
Uh,
of lines
yeah,
that were brought from this, and I have a few
right.
mentioned, but
If you had to
Hunter
pick somebody that was gonna have it like partially affect them, like the chip,
had to be him.
Crosshair is the way to do it. So I appreciated that.
It always had to be him because he was always the outsider of the outsiders.
Yeah, for sure.
So Crosshair snipes the branch, which is also interesting. Crosshair doesn't miss. He could have
Right.
shot Kanan, but he shoots the branch instead, which is really weird to me. I'm like, I don't think he was fully gone until the end. But he just shoots Kanan down, and then Hunter lets him go and
Right.
lies, says, "Oh, he died," and Crosshair figures it out real quick. He did not. So Hunter lets him go. They head back as their orders are to go back to Camino, and Crosshair is not a happy camper. So you have
Yeah,
anything
and
to?
I like the way that sorry about that.
Oh, go ahead.
I like the way Freddie Prinze played this for Kanan, just because it's like he didn't trust Clone Force 99, which makes so much sense because he just saw his master got taken out by like 20 clone troopers.
Exactly.
But the clone troopers having that confusion, like, what the heck is wrong with this kid? Like, I don't know why they did that. We didn't do that. Like, very, very interesting to see. It was cool to see this dynamic about it.
So anything to add on our opening in Order 66?
No, definitely really cool. I remember seeing on Twitter the night before somebody who had previously watched the episode. I guess it kind of spoiled it, but they're like, Rebels fans are gonna be really happy tomorrow morning, and I was like, don't they mean Clone Wars fans? And then I was like, oh, that's why they said that. That's okay.
That's
That makes
a
sense.
quick way to never get an early access again. We
Really
will,
quick, yeah.
if Disney's watching this, we will gladly take it. I'll take an
I
early
will
access.
never talk about it with anyone except for my buddy Cliff, aka you.
So we head back to Camino, and on the Havoc Marauder, they descend towards Topoka City and are needing clearance codes for the first time ever to land in their hangar. They're like, "Oh, this is just new regulations." And as they're walking through the rainy planet of Camino in this, as we all know, the nice white, clean area, clones are carrying a dead person on a stretcher, and a lightsaber falls from their hand, and I thought that was incredible. Just another
Yeah,
way to really hammer home like the Jedi are gone.
even the people on Camino like are dead. These Jedi are gone now.
DEAD,
Dead.
dead. But yeah, so we see them walk through these halls. There's an abundant amount of shock troopers. So people don't know, those are the red Coruscant guards that are specifically tied to Emperor Palpatine.
They look
Um,
really good. Time
I
out
love
real quick. They
the
look
red.
really, really good.
I
I love
love the red.
that armor.
Um, and we see them enter their barracks, and their barracks is a mess. It is a absolute way to show their uniqueness compared to other
It was very
clones.
good.
And it was also interesting how they gave them their own barracks. They get their own quarters, where other clones would have to be in just like these like tubes.
I gotta assume that's because like the other clones are like, we can't do this. Like, look at us. We keep this all nice and clean. Wrecker's out here, like fingerprints everywhere, probably. Like, I can't live with this record. I like just give them their own space.
And this is where we have Crosshairs talking about good soldiers following orders and saying you should have killed that Jedi. This is your fault. Why you're not the leader we're supposed to be? But Tech comes and confirms my theory from a year ago, season 7, where Tech says that the Bad Batch has been different because oh my god, I can't speak. The Kaminoans manipulated pre-existing aberrations in their DNA, resulting in Wrecker's brute strength, Crosshair's sharpshooting skills, Hunter's enhanced senses, and Tech's exceptional mind. He really like gave it like the Obama meme where he medals himself. He really
Yeah.
was saying, "Oh, my mind, yeah." And he believes that because of this, they're immune to the effects of the inhibitor chips, but he's not fully certain. And then Echo's like, "What about me?" He was a reg, and everyone's favorite quote from A New Hope: "He's more machine than man now." Technically,
Yeah, for sure. That
which
was
I
pretty
actually
cool.
really like because it shows like clones have always been like looked down upon. They're not human to a lot of people. Um, and Anakin was like the perfect person. He was the perfect, like, he was the chosen one, and
Yeah.
his fall from machine to man was purely spiteful and hatred and evil. Where Echo has even worse stuff happen to him than
Right.
Vader, if we're being honest, and he is
Yeah.
still hopeful. And uses his tech powers and enhanced biometrics for good now. So I also kind of like that parallel
And
between them.
I know this is really small, but I love that they call like the other clones regs, just
So
because
do
like
I.
the other clones probably look at them as freaks, and they're like, no, like we're the normal ones. You guys are just regs. Like I kind of like that they like have their own nickname for like everybody else, because they probably get, maybe they could get discriminated on, especially after Order 66 happens too, by like other things, because like obviously they're not like regular clones because they are enhanced, but they're just like, no, these regs, like forget them kind of thing. No offense
Exactly.
to Echo, but you're just a reg or
but
were
Echo's
right.
more. Echo's now one of them.
Right,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
and as Crosshair and Hunter are arguing, they're like, "Oh, there's a meeting happening," and Hunter's like, "This is the first meeting I don't want to miss." As we move into the new order, and that is the First Galactic Empire, and they used
Galactic Empire.
and
I
they
have to do it.
used the audio,
Which
which
is
was
awesome.
excellent. And
Yeah.
I love the thought that they broadcast this across the galaxy. And it hammered home on hunting the Jedi. And when it ends, all the clones start to cheer, and that's when
That
Tech
was
goes. And Tech
that
goes,
was
"Oh,
eerie.
my theory's correct. My theory's correct." But I don't think Crosshair cheered. He still
No,
had a
because he's
partial.
like, yeah, he's like in, but he's out at the same time until the end. Obviously, when they do what they do, and
Exactly.
we'll talk about that later. But I was like, oh boy, like they got on board really quick. They killed those Jedi's, and they're all in on Emperor Palpatine here.
They are. And as this is happening, Hunter makes eye contact with a young girl, just a young blonde girl that, and we're like, "Who is this?" We know that it is Omega. We don't know much about her. We just know that she's standing next to Nala Se. And then as this, they start talking more. And the interesting thing from Crosshair is he talks and he's like, "The regime doesn't matter. Republic, Empire, technically it's all the same to us." That's
Right.
talk that we see in like authoritarian stuff. We
sure.
won't dive into that today. I'm guessing we'll have plenty of weeks to discuss the political aspects of and outcomes of this.
For sure.
And they go back to their barracks discussing this, and that's where we get introduced officially to Omega when she is back at the barracks, kind of snooping around. And we find out from Nala Se, as we know she's in Attack of the Clones, that is her. Omega is her assistant in the
Yeah.
medical area. So what do you think? What were your first reactions to this girl?
I've been very interested because obviously Omega, like having her name Omega is a big thing because Omega is usually the is or not usually it is the last letter of the alphabet.
Unless there's new letters.
Yeah, but so like that was interesting because that mean like okay she's the last clone. What does this mean? She obviously seems different. The fact that she's a female, where all the other clones are male copies of Jango
Mhm.
Fett. That's a pretty big deal too. Just to be like, okay, what does this mean? Um, and obviously we find out later in this episode that she's enhanced, and I love that we're
Spoiler
connecting this.
alert.
Well, whatever. I love that we're connecting this. Can we just get into it with her? Because like obviously she seems like she might be enhanced with some sort of like force abilities, or at least she's the first test of it. Which is exciting because it's like, okay, now this is going to connect to Snoke in episode 8 and 9. This is going to potentially connect to whatever the heck Dr. Pershing was doing with Grogu in season 1/season 2 of Mando. They're really harping in on this like cloning with the Force kind of thing lately, especially Disney Star Wars between Mandalorian, the sequel trilogy, and now potentially this. So I think it's a very interesting direction that they're going with. But it also kind of helps put in that canon that like cloning using the Force is like a legitimate thing, if that makes sense too.
Yes, my first thought I don't think she's a clone of Jango Fett. She might be. You can adjust technically if you wanted to. I don't think who she's a clone of matters because obviously the Kaminoans can clone anyone,
Right.
and I don't think she's enhanced. She's not an enhanced droid or clone, so her aging is not accelerated. She honestly, to me, looked kind of. She really, her look reminded me very much of Duchess Satine. That's kind of what I was
Yes.
getting. So I'm like, is she Mandalorian? I mean, we technically know Jango Fett is a foundling, but there's all these things. I'm like, she kind of has that Mandalorian look. I'm like, it could be. I definitely think she's force sensitive. That is my like. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, based off our conversation with I think Crosshair in the break, and we'll talk
Yes,
about that later, I'm sure. But
but as
I
we,
like her a lot. I think
who
she's
do
a
you
cool
think she's?
character. I'm
Who do you think
excited.
she's a clone of?
I I I don't have any opinion. I think maybe of some sort of Jedi, but I don't know. I don't think it matters. It probably will, and
That's what I said. I don't think it matters.
I kind of like it being like had what I had canon for Ray, that Ray was a no one. I would kind of like Omega to actually be like a no one that like was able to be cloned and maybe like infused with like some sort of force abilities with maybe something else. I don't know, but
Hmm.
I'm excited to see what happens. And I think she's going to be a badass little character, and I'm very excited for that. Like, I'm excited to see her like potentially fight, maybe using the Force. I like the idea of more Force users in the world, so we'll see what happens with her.
Yeah,
Where it's going to
absolutely.
go. But I'm excited
Absolutely.
for it. She's really cool.
And as we go into that, we won't talk about her for a little bit, but we have where loyalties lie. And as we know, as Grand Moff Tarkin appears out of his ship with his glorious thunder thighs, um, there we know stuff is about to hit the fan. As this
Yeah.
is the man. Yes, Vader is the Emperor's like fist, but Tarkin controls Vader. That just shows you how scary Grand Moff Tarkin is. And as we start to see, like, okay, he wants certain things, they don't know if the clones are necessary anymore, it's cheaper, we're going to reevaluate everything.
And this is nice, real quick. It's nice to see this because like, I feel like there's never been official confirmation. Like, yeah, the first stormtroopers were clones or they weren't, kind of a thing. Like, for the most part, they haven't been. So it's like, okay, like, why aren't they the clones anymore? So this is gonna probably put that into it. Like, yeah, we know this is why we're not going to clones, because Tarkin doesn't like them and doesn't want them at this point, even though they went in and did Palpatine's bidding of Order 66. I also love that we have Star Wars animation, so we can bring back characters like Tarkin, because I used to be terrified of Tarkin when I was a kid, even though he wasn't the one in the big, like, scary black suit like Vader was, but like Tarkin just scared the Jesus out of me. So I like getting Tarkin back in this, and I'm interested to see what other characters will come into the series, who otherwise probably couldn't because they're from like the 1970s, 80s Star Wars movies, and they couldn't portray who they are now, but you can bring them back to animated. So I'm interested to see what else happens.
Very true. Yeah, I remember watching A New Hope yesterday, and I'm like, oh, he's always just terrifying. It's always just great.
Terrifying.
And as we go through, we start to see some hostility from the regular clones who are now all in their just white clone armor,
Yep.
kind of making fun of, picking at Bad Batch, including Omega, who decides to sit with them, and they're all like, no one sits with us, like, uh, and she starts a food fight.
Right.
That was interesting. And it was really interesting to me that the clones fought back for the food fight. That was weird to me because I'm like,
Yeah,
shouldn't
I'm
they be
surprised they
following
weren't
their
control.
orders? And sadly, Echo ends on the wrong side of a lunch tray and ends up in the infirmary, and he has his PTSD from being hooked up to all these machines, and everyone knows they're fine. But what did you think of the food fight? I thought that was actually I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was funny. It's an animated show, right? Like, I don't need this to be completely like serious the whole time. Like, it can be funny,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to say childish, but like, it's a family show at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So like, it is what it is. I thought it was pretty funny. I love Wrecker wanting to get all into it. He's not gonna throw food. He's gonna throw full trays at you. But pretty funny scene, and interesting seeing Omega spunk and seeing her attitude. Like, I'm interested to see how that gets like more utilized in future episodes.
Yeah, for sure. And the biggest part, I think this is the biggest thing in that shows the difference between the Empire and the Republic is Tarkin wants to see the best of the best in the simulator, and the Bad
Yeah,
Batch completely just decimate through it. And then he's like, I want live ammo. That's
craziness.
more realistic. We have worse things coming, and Jesus, Wrecker takes a shot directly to the chest and is
Yep.
fine. So he
Yeah.
must have some type. His armor's either enhanced or he has also enhanced healing. But it really shows the uniqueness of them because I'm watching something like these people do not have real guns and they have to use their wits. I'm like, all the other clones that were just making fun of them would have all just got, they would be dead.
Annihilated right
And
away.
I'm like, these guys, like, it's so unique how they go through this. The hand sign thing was funny,
Yeah.
but what what did you think? Because it showed me that Tarkin automatically like these clones, even though they're the best, they're expendable. And but
He,
also I want to see what they do.
yeah, I mean, I like that he gave him a shot kind of thing, but my goodness, to put them through live ammo when they didn't have like the real blasters, it was like all stun weapons basically, was really interesting, and it shows how scary Tarkin can be and how ruthless he is and how much he does not care about clones. And it's funny because like obviously their performance should be like eye-opening to Tarkin, but he has such a disdain for clones that he's like still doesn't care, and I love that character building for Tarkin because it goes off more of like, you know what I mean?
He was impressed. when they did the close up on his eyes, and he's like, oh, like
But he's
he
still
like
like he's still not into the clone idea though.
he's not, but he was into this.
Fair, yes.
But then
Um,
automatically his very tactical mind is like, there seems to be some issues because one of them said the Jedi died, and someone else said he didn't, and we start to see the seeds of not betrayal. I'm not going to say crosshair
Dissent.
of dissent. That's a great word for it.
Yeah.
Where Tarkin's like, okay, these guys have it, but do they have it? Do they have the commitment to the Empire? And this is where they send them on a mission to Onderon to test their abilities.
I definitely heard that wrong the first time. I definitely thought he said Alderaan. I think I texted you. I was like, oh, I just got to the part where they like send him to Alderaan. So I just misheard it in the morning. And then I was like, wait, that's not Alderaan. And then when I watched it with captions the second time, I was like, oh,
And I'm
I
going to
sound
add
dumb.
one other thing because I have this whole area called Where Loyalty Lies, where we saw something very more interesting where there's 5 Bad Batch members and they told Tarkin there are 5 enhanced clones.
Right.
Where do you believe the Camoans, oh my god, where do their loyalties lie?
That's a great question. I think it's towards the clones. I would have to think. Like they seem very much into the fact that you know what? I think their loyalty. Never mind. No, it's not to the clones. It's to themselves. I think
Yes,
they're
yes,
gonna do their own stuff.
exactly.
Hold on, I had to think that one out loud, and I apologize. It took me a little bit to get there, and I would have said the clones, but no, they care about themselves. They want to make more money. They're all about their contract with uh the Republic, the old Republic, I guess now.
And now that's in danger.
And now it's the Empire. They're like, no, like that should our contract should still go. So yeah, no, their self interest is in themselves. Maybe Nala say has some interest with like because she has that connection with Omega, but everybody else is they're in the Kamonians are in for themselves.
I'm glad we're on the same level here. But Tarkin decides to send them to Onderon as a mission of faith to have them put down insurrectionists. That's all we know. Omega hears this, and as they are getting ready to leave in the hangar, Hunter is told by Omega to not trust Tarkin. Echo doesn't trust Tarkin either, because that's where Echo technically died,
Right.
saving technically at the time one of the most important tacticians in the Republic. Um, and it's just a wild like time for this because it's like you already have Echo who's like, I don't know if we can trust them. Then Omega's like, don't trust them and take me with you. Don't come back
Right.
here. Just leave and bring me with you. And he's like, why would I take this little girl? Why would I steal this little
Right.
girl with us? And Crosshair is very much like, let's get this mission done. Let's finish this.
Crosshair is out for blood, and he needs the blood so bad.
He is. He is ready to go. And they land on the jungle planet of Onderon. And I'm guessing anyone that's watched Clone Wars knew exactly where we were going with this. We just keep coming back to this specific guerrilla warfare fighter, but they start tracking through the jungle and they find their targets. And Crosshair has his scope on an old woman ready to be like, just tell me when. Just
Craziness.
tell me. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like,
I love that they use the
what
old
the
woman
heck?
to put this is gonna sound stupid, but they put her in his crosshairs, which is dumb to say because it's crosshair.
But
But I think it speaks to like that. Like if they put it at a soldier, it wouldn't have had as much of an impact, but it had such a big impact that he was like ready to take out this elderly woman civilian kind of thing. Like he was ready to go.
sorry, Grandma.
Jesus.
And it's very much like when Rex figures out that the clones are fighting themselves on Umbara, where it's like, do not shoot, like we're fighting, like why would we shoot civilians? And
Right.
Crosshair is upset, and then they get captured by these fighters as I'm gonna say snuck up in air quotes. I think the Bad Batch would have won that fight if they decided to
Yeah,
shoot their way
absolutely.
out of it.
Hunter told them to put their weapons down because they wanted to see what the heck was going on.
And we get down into this camp and we see all civilians and we finally meet, well, again, Saw Gerrera. I thought
And
his animation looked so good. I
it
thought
looks
this was the
so
best
good.
he's looked.
I agree. I will absolutely say that this is the best he's looked, and this is why, again, I'll say it over and over again. I love this animation stuff because you can put in these characters like Saw Gerrera in live action was who Forrest Whitaker, right? Like you
Hmm.
can't put old man Forrest Whitaker as a younger Saw Gerrera. Same thing, you couldn't put Sherlock Guinness playing old Obi-Wan in Rebels. Like it's and same thing with Tarkin. You can bring back these characters, and from what I've heard, I don't know who else is going to come back, but there's going to be other familiar faces coming back, and I'm excited for that because you can do that with the animation. So it was really cool to see Saw Gerrera and see him maybe 2 days after the fall of the Republic and the beginning of the Empire. He's all in on like, nope, screw the Empire, like screw Palpatine, like he's in the fight, and it's awesome to see how quickly he's in that fight because he really is, for all lack of better purposes, he's probably the spark of the rebellion to start it off, and at least the one helping to organize people.
Okay, I'm gonna say the worst thing they ever cut from Revenge of the Sith was the 5-second scene of Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and all of them talking about forming a resistance. It's so bad that they cut that scene because that technically Mon Mothma and Bail Organa are the spark. Padme's death is what sparks them to start like, no, this is not fair anymore because Padme was leading. Padme towards the end of Revenge of the Sith was getting ready to say the Separatists were right, and Palpatine is an issue. So there's Saw is one of them, but we know Saw ends up going borderline terrorist.
For sure. Yep.
Um,
Not great.
Not great. But something that I really liked is Saw talking about everything they fought for the Republic is at stake. Everything that they were done can be gone in a whiff. And I thought Saw's message was really good, and you could tell Hunter, it really spoke to him. And I'm gonna say the reason I like Hunter so much is because he's the most humane clone
Yeah.
we've met. He is the one that someone brought it up on Reddit. Hunter is honestly like the most Jango Fett clone. He's the one that
I like that.
is so unique. Like
Yeah.
Rex for the longest time was the best soldier.
Yeah.
Cody also the best leader. All these things,
Yeah.
but Hunter is just the most humane.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
I
so
agree with that.
interesting.
That's a good thought.
It's so interesting, and I'm really interested to see where that. I think it would be cool if they made Hunter the first clone ever produced. Oh no, that's the second clone ever produced. The first one is Boba Fett. Um, I think it would be interesting if the Bad Batch were part of the first 100 clones created. In 99,
Right.
99 was mutated on too much, and it led to what he became. There's so many ways you can go about this, but what did you think of Saw and like these displaced refugees?
Yeah, no, I mean it's showing how quickly the Empire, the evilness that comes about it, right? Literally, I don't know. I keep saying a day or two, but like I don't know if that's official, but like very quickly, it's got to be within that first week that the Empire has begun and that Palpatine has taken over as the Emperor instead of the Supreme Chancellor. So it was cool to see, interesting to see, and it was awesome to see the Bad Batch's dynamics here, especially with what happens to Crosshair and the rest of the Bad Batch later in this episode. That's really helps to further that plot line along, especially where Crosshair is ready to kill these guys.
Absolutely, and they let them leave and they head back to their ship.
Yeah.
And Crosshair goes at Hunter saying, you might not be fit to lead anymore. What are you doing? All these things, going back and forth. And Hunter's like, we don't kill civilians. We don't do this. And as they're going, and it looks like things leading to the Mexican standoff, Hunter whips out his pistol and destroys a probe droid that was tracking them. This whole thing was a farce to figure out their thing, and they figure out that it's a Republic one. Kind of interesting, those probe droids were Republic era that switched over.
Cool. I like when we see stuff like that. It's really cool. It's like also weird to see like the big Star Destroyers, like even to this day, it's still weird to see them as Republic like weapons, basically.
Those aren't. Star Destroyers are a newer model compared to the Venators. Venators are smaller and more agile compared to a Star Destroyer, which are bigger and meant for more like power and bases. Yeah. Venators are much smaller.
For sure.
But they decide to go back to Camino for one specific purpose. Tech figured out a long time ago, but the 5th mutated clone is Omega. And Hunter's like, what the heck? Why didn't you tell us this? We would have taken her. And he's like, I thought it was obvious.
Right.
Very funny back and forth, but you're like,
I like crap. When Tech knows things before other people.
Absolutely. And you're like, oh crap. And I had my suspicions she was until it was confirmed right then and there. And they're like, Tarkin thought it was Echo. Echo's a
Right.
reg. So they decided to go back, and even Crosshair knows it's a bad idea. He's like, no, it's not. It's a trap, and it
Right.
is. They return to Camino, and they are instantly arrested by a medley of shock troopers because they cannot follow orders.
Right.
So they were put in a cell with Omega. One problem solved, as Tech would say, or Echo said it. One of them. They're both the
I
techie
think it was
people
Echo.
now.
Yeah.
Um, but they decide to take Crosshair first to analyze him. And this is where we find out his chip is still functioning.
And they boost the heck out of it.
They boost the heck out of it. I'm like, oh damn. I'm like, and I kind of like, I love the idea of villain, like forced to be a villain,
Yeah.
where and it's gonna make if Crosshair dies, his death is gonna be so much sadder because the chip dies when you're dying, as we saw, like the nightmares are over, and it's gonna be so depressing in episode 16.
But it'd be also cool, like even if he doesn't die, like they help him reverse it, kind of a thing
Mm,
potentially. Like it'll definitely be interesting to see, especially when you have a bad guy who is a bad guy, and it's not because of his own doing. Because had his inhibitor chip never worked, he would have been just like his other brothers in Clone Force
exactly.
99. He would have been absolutely fine. It makes it so much more tragic, like you said. So it's a really good plot device and a good storyline for sure.
And he has this nice new. Well, we'll talk about his armor. My brother believes he's gonna be the first Death Trooper.
That
He's
would
gonna
be
be
interesting.
he's the first Death Trooper, and it would make sense
That'd be
based on
sick.
just how good he is. So while that is happening, they're all like, "We need to escape. This isn't gonna go well," and they use Wrecker's strength to break open the door, and these stupid shock troopers
It
ignore
was a
it.
very fun escape scene.
It was, and Omega is able to sneak through and open the door for them and get back to their ship. And also, you said Omega, right before Crosshair was taken, says, I know you're not what you're going to do, and I know, and it's okay. You can't help it. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, this is sad. I'm like, what the heck? And this is where I'm like, this
And
girl is
that's
force sensitive.
and that's where you have to be like, okay, Omega has to be force sensitive because
Mm-hmm.
she knows that Crosshair is angry. She knows I know what you're about to do. I hope you don't do it, but I know that it's not you doing it.
Exactly.
And that's the most obvious force thing of all time, and I love it. But I like that they're gonna hopefully, I'm knock on wood, fingers crossed. I'm hoping that they do a slow build to the force being awoken, or even more so awoken and used with Omega, if they go
Yes,
that route.
I think we will. And it was also really interesting because every time Hunter did something, she mimicked him.
Yeah,
That's a fun little thing. So they finally escape and they make it back to their ship, able to put on all their outfits and uniforms until the door opens and Crosshair emerges with his new Imperial armor.
looks
Anyone
really
that
cool.
follows toys got this spoiled for them because it is part of the Lego set and his Black
Yeah.
series. That was partially spoiled for me, but I was kind of expecting something like that to happen. And they have a very good Star Wars is Western. We have this very good standoff, and it's very
Yeah,
like do do do. They should have done a metallic like Mexican standoff thing.
it was very fun, and I like that it was in a very small, confined
Mhm.
space because it made the battle more intense. Because there was only so many places they could move. It's either
Yep.
okay, you hide behind this box or you hide behind that box. So it was very interesting how they did that.
And finally, they start blasting at each other. They're all able to avoid Crosshair, and it's really interesting because it's like they all know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And again, Wrecker gets shot, but everyone knows Crosshair is using him for bait, which is just wild. Like
They
they're
know
all
they'll
like,
try
we
to
know
save
what's
them,
gonna
which is
happen.
crazy.
And they're finally able to do all these things and get to the ship, but Crosshair is about to shoot. I believe he's about to shoot
Hunter, I
Hunter,
think, right?
and
Yeah.
then out of nowhere, Omega fires a blaster for the first time ever, directly shooting his blaster,
Yeah,
and they're
ducks it
able
out
to
of his pants.
escape because of it. Because she's able to shoot. Everyone's like, "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" She goes, "I don't know. Never touched a blaster before."
And I
The,
love that, right? Because it shows, okay, there's still some force powers, but it wasn't her just like sticking out her hand and like
mm-hmm.
taking the gun out using the force or pushing him back. It's still sowing the seeds of the like, okay, she probably has something up with her. She has the force potentially without her just going at it like Grogu did with the big mud horn, basically. Like,
Yes.
okay, like obviously this kid has force powers. Like, I'm glad that's how they did it. Where it's like, oh my god, like you had like a one-time shot, kind of like Luke-esque, where it's like you've never
Hmm.
really held a blaster, and all of a sudden you're just nasty at it, kind of a thing.
And as Crosshair yells at one of his clones to close the door, Nalase overrides it, letting
Yes,
them escape. And Nalase and the Prime Minister are like, it's been done. Like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And it's the whole thing where they are definitely out for themselves, but also out for their unique property.
for sure,
The regular
absolutely.
clones, easy to do. These mutated
Yeah,
ones are unique and they need to continue, which I
for
think is
sure.
very interesting. Um, and as they are in space, I'm surprised they didn't jump before. I'm like, you're just sitting ducks right now.
Right.
We are told to go to J9 because Hunter knows a guy that's a friend. But fun fact, if you look on the universe map, it is empty. There's nothing there. So we're probably seeing a new
Interesting.
planet. Um, and we end with this beautiful shot of Omega, her eyes as they enter hyperspace as we get
Really
ready for
cool.
Friday. But my question, before we talk about the overall thing, who is this? Who is this mysterious contact?
I think it's going to be a brand new character. I've been thinking about this a
Ooh.
lot. I think it's going to be a brand new character. I think Star Wars will sometimes do. Marvel does that too, where they tease that a little bit, like, "Oh, I have like an old friend," and then it's like actually a friend that you've never met before, kind of thing. But so it'll be interesting to see the bond that they create. But I think it's going to be somebody completely different. I don't think it's going to be a Jedi or anything like that. Um, it's tough to say, right? Because we don't know who any of their friends are because we've only been with the Bad Batch for 4 episodes in the Clone Wars plus this, and the only people they've really interacted with is like Anakin and maybe it's
Hmm.
like Rex potentially. Like,
But shouldn't this is my friend Megan was like, because I said, oh, it's gonna be Rex, like, but Rex is to everyone is dead.
yeah, and you can't trust him because you don't know if
That's
he has the
true.
inhibitor chip or not either. So it's like, so that's why I was like thinking like, okay, it'll be Rex maybe, but then that's why I think it's gonna be a new character because I was like, I don't think you can trust Rex at
Well,
this
my
point.
other thing is, like, to me, Guy is not. To me, Guy is genderless. Could it be Fennec?
Oh, for sure,
It might be Fennec, but we
that
know
could be.
Fennec is
So
on
you think Fennec Shand
Coruscant.
is on there, but Fennec Shand could be on their side? That's interesting to
Yes.
see.
Oh no, I don't think
Yeah,
she's gonna be. I think she's gonna be helpful. I think honestly, we could possibly see Boba Fett in this.
that'd be sick. A
Because
young Boba
actually, it
Fett.
would make sense if Boba Fett likes the Bad Batch because they're the first time he looks at a
His bad
clone and it's
guess.
not himself.
And they're like the bad boys kind of thing
That's
too. So
true.
that'd be interesting. That'd be kind of cool.
Especially if
But yeah,
those are the clones he grew up with. There's all these
yeah,
options. But overall, what do you think?
I had a blast. It was an, I think 70 minutes was like a little too long, but it probably would have just been three.
Boo.
No, just it was tough
Boo.
in the morning, so you don't get spoiled. I was like, I don't know, like the extra 10 minutes like really hurt because I wasn't able to finish the episode in the morning because I had to get ready for work. So that's just me being selfish, and I probably should have woken up earlier if I didn't want that.
I
But
know Mr. 3 a.m.
yeah, I know, but it was very fun. I'm excited for the rest of this. Again, the animation team is great. I trust Dave Filoni with my creative life, so I'm very, very happy with how this first episode came out, and I am very much looking forward to the rest of the season. What about you, Cliff?
Yeah, I was very impressed by this. I'm very happy with it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Um, I know I was expecting spoilers, but I didn't really see spoilers the way we saw stuff for Marvel.
Even that though, the Falcon Winter Soldier didn't have many spoilers either.
That's
Like it was
true.
really WandaVision, and that's what I'm nervous about Loki is that Loki's going to be like that too because like Falcon Winter Soldier, you kind of
Because
know what's
people want the
happening.
memes.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think Benedict or not Benedict Cumberbatch, excuse me, um, Paul Bettany like really messed up WandaVision spoilers because people were waiting for like that
That's
big
true.
surprise kind of thing. So people were just waiting for it. But yeah, no, I didn't see too many spoilers. I actually don't think I really saw any. I saw like one, but it was like 20 minutes after I watched the episode, and it was Crosshair turning to the bad side. Um,
That's true.
but that wasn't like I had watched it, but even that, like, it's like I don't know. I don't think it's as it's fun, but it's not as like important as like a Marvel spoiler would be because I know not everyone is into the animated stuff. It's not like it's a Star Wars movie or even Mandalorian. Like I just don't think it's too big of a deal. If
I
that makes sense.
also feel Star Wars fans are slightly more respectable with spoilers. I might be completely wrong, or I just follow
I
the
strongly disagree.
or I follow the correct people.
After the Luke thing, Luke was up at 3:05, and he didn't even like come on the screen till like 3:40 if you started the episode right at 3 o'clock.
Well, that's
So
true. But anything else
yeah.
to add?
No, I loved it. I'm excited for more. I'm excited to cover more of it, especially as we get through more of these big properties. It's always fun to have new Star Wars, and I'm excited we're getting another episode on Friday.
Very true.
I kind of wish they did 2 a week, but we'll see. Right
Technically,
now
we
it
get
doesn't
2
seem
this
like it.
week. Technically, we get
No,
4
for
this
sure.
week.
I wish they continued that, where you get 2 a week. I think that'd be pretty fun to do, but especially if there are going to be 16 episodes, I feel like that's a lot for Disney Plus. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens next.
That is true. So just like that, that is the Bad Batch episode 1 aftermath. So for social media, you can find me at CPRobinson81, and take it away, Cam. You always like this.
You can find me at Cam Ramos95. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Stream the Mouse. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Streaming with the Mouse. And you can find us on our website, cprob.com/Stream the Mouse. If you haven't already given us a like and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Google, please be sure to do so. But that's it, everyone. Bad Batch episode 1 in the books. Excited to talk about episode 2 with you next week, Cliff. But without that, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you.